To be honest, Xingluo Qiao really didn't expect it. Even after just taking a nap, my 26-year-old body, which had been devastated, turned into a 12-year-old brat. What surprised him even more was that the chickens in his grandmother's chicken farm had turned into one familiar yet unfamiliar elf after another. What surprised him even more was that when I trembled and touched a sleeping walking grass, there was a ding sound in my mind. The strongest elf system has been unlocked. May I ask if you want to bind the walking grass in front of you? Ah. Binding. I'm sorry, this walking grass is not interested in you at all. Binding failed. Please find a suitable elf for yourself within a week, otherwise this system will only explode in your mind. Ah. Kind reminder. This book is a slow-paced work with a long story. I hope everyone has a good time reading it. Chapter 1. My brain is about to burst. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, I am Xingluo Qiao. I am 26 this year, a child without a father or mother, raised by my grandmother. I am 178 tall and have a beautiful appearance. Okay, in the mirror in front of me, I can tell at a glance that it's a junior high school kid. Who is it? Xingluo Qiao has read a lot of online novels and is well versed in various ways. It seems that she has been reborn and has not run away. Next, I will use these more than 10 years of experience to retrace my life path, and then marry Bai Fumei and beat up the wealthy second generation, Johnny. Just as Xingluo Qiao was reshaping his worldview, a sky-blue turtle creature standing slightly higher than his calves was blinking its big eyes and looking at him. Grab the grass. Spray the water, you bastard. Johnny. Qiao, how many times has Grandma told you? Elves can understand what we're saying. Please be careful when you come into contact with elves. Xingluo Qiao looked at the familiar old man in front of him helping him bring clean clothes, and he finally regained some consciousness, who was already confused. Grandma, I won't do it next time. Xingluo Qiao is surnamed after his grandmother because he was originally an orphan. Grandma Xing's original name was Xing Mingluo. When she was young, she was also a great beauty. Later, for some reason, she returned to the countryside and opened a small chicken farm, living alone all along. Grandma Xing also knows what kind of virtue her grandson is. Although she can't blame him, his mouth is indeed impure, and she has always said that he doesn't listen at all. But this time, Grandma Xing saw something in the eyes of her own grandson that she had never seen before. Xingluo Qiao looked at the old man in front of him, holding back his slightly sour nose. When he was a child, he died in silence because others always scolded him for not having a father or mother. He was the one who erupted, no matter how old the child was on the other side, as long as he scolded him, he would definitely retaliate. If he wanted to fight, he would grab and scold him the most unpleasant thing. Over time, no one dared to provoke him, but cursing too much resulted in his mouth becoming slightly poisonous, and it only improved slightly after work. After a long absence, I had breakfast with my grandmother. I had clear soup with noodles sprinkled with some scallions, a fried egg, and a plate of stir-fried sour beans and meat. Xingluo Qiao had a very happy meal, and during the meal, he also sorted out his fragmented worldview. At the dining table, he learned that his grandmother was not running a chicken farm anymore, but a elf breeding house. No wonder he looked around and it was completely different from when he was a child. Now they live in a 3-story small Western-style house. The second floor is his and his grandmother's room, the first floor is the store of the elf cultivation house, and the third floor is usually filled with miscellaneous items. Now he can only be certain that his rebirth is a rebirth, but this world seems to be different from the original world. Not only is there the original Huaxia kingdom and some countries, but there are also several major regions that do not belong to any country and are ruled by the Elf Alliance. At the same time, all countries and things related to the elves are also managed by the Alliance. Xingluo Qiao had breakfast, and the news broadcasted on the TV that Grandma opened, and she also asked many questions, which was how she reshaped her worldview. After finishing his meal, he couldn't wait to go downstairs. Grandma runs an elf cultivation house. That elf is not Gagachuo. He opened the door and helped his grandmother open the door of the store, hanging a wooden sign. Apricot Cultivation House. This is the name of Grandma's nurturing house. After finishing these, he suddenly looked to the right. In my memory, it was a red brick house. The stinky chicken farm was gone, replaced by a patch of fragrant grass. Several stones were scattered on the grass, and there were several big trees and a small stream in the distance. Even further away. It's not his venue anymore. Ahem, to get to the point, although I don't know why, it's obvious that Grandma's breeding house is not small, and there are really many elves. Walking on the grass, there were rows of grass lined up, one by one driving a small train. Not far from the grass, there were a few wonderful frog seeds chasing butterflies together. A few waves on the tree were combing their feathers. There were also a few small fire dragons basking in the sun on the stones. The stream was clear and clear, with several carp kings and horned goldfish playing with each other, and a few swimming weasels playing along the shore. Xingluo Qiao stood dumbfounded in the field of his own cultivation house, with a dull expression on his face. Johnny Turtle, who gave Xingluo Qiao a water gun this morning, patted him. Seeing Xingluo Qiao staring blankly, he felt a bit guilty. It wasn't because the water from his morning water gun had been poured into this guy's mind. I'm fine. Spit. Cough, Johnny Turtle, go play. Xingluo Qiao stopped the loss in time and almost became a drowned rat again. What a Pokémon. He only has 2 words now, happiness. A strong sense of happiness surrounded him, and he trembled as he reached out to a sleeping walking grass. He's going to have a live Pokémon today. Just as his fingertips touched the walking grass. Ding, the strongest elf system is activated. May I ask if the host is bound to the elf in front of them? Xingluo Qiao froze and instinctively said something. Unable to distinguish the host's wishes, default confirmation. Binding in progress. I'll wipe it. Don't do it. Walking grass may be cute, but it's not my dish. Just when he realized he wanted to stop it. I'm sorry, this walking grass doesn't even want to look at the host. Binding failed. Ding. Please host and tame one of your own elves within a week. Otherwise, this system will only explode in your mind seeds. Xingluo Qiao rubbed his brain and let it go for 10 seconds. Then he patted his face, and a smile appeared on his lips. He had a chance to grow up and become familiar again. Now his acceptance ability is very strong. Looking at the elves filling the yard, he naturally knew that most of them were owned, so he suddenly turned around and returned home. At this moment, Grandma Xing was holding a fan and lying on the lounge chair, fanning herself. She looked at her grandson rushing in with excitement and helplessly smiled, asking, "Good grandson, what's wrong?" "Grandma. I want a starter elf." Grandma Xing felt a little helpless and said, "Didn't she just tell you last week? When you finish this summer and enter junior high school, which is when you are 13 years old, the school will send you elf eggs. Then Grandma will help you tell the school that we can bring our own elf eggs. Didn't you pick that last time? That Johnny's turtle egg." Of course, Xingluo Qiao has no idea. The top priority now is to get an elf within a week. So he quickly asked, "Grandma, how long until school starts?" "Silly kid, you've been playing crazy these days, haven't you? You've only been on vacation for a week. There are still over 2 months left." Xingluo Qiao tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Please," Grandma Xing asked curiously, "why are you suddenly so anxious?" "Grandma, I'll be honest with you. You must believe me." Xingluo Qiao looked at her grandmother with a serious expression on her face. Grandma Xing looked at her grandson's expression and sat up straight, afraid that her grandson might have offended someone outside. She said sternly, "Qiao, don't worry, Grandma will support you if something happens. Grandma, I have a disease where if I don't get the initial sprite within a week, my head will explode. It's true. Grandma, believe me. Believe me. Go out and play on your own. After Grandma Xing finished speaking, Xingluo Qiao felt like she had been thrown out of the house by a gentle force, and the door had been closed. He patted the ash on his buttocks. Okay, now he's playing with Nima Duzi. Chapter 2. Self-Rescue Action. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. I can only try my luck in the forest by myself. Xingluo Qiao patted his face. There is a forest near his house with a lot of insect-like elves, so no matter what it is, it's important to save your life. There are two questions in front of him now. Firstly, although the forest is full of weak and small elves, he is just a little kid going there. In case of any danger, there is no need for the system to explode, and he will have to go inside. Secondly, the tone of this system is not just about choosing elves also have to choose themselves in order to bind. Xingluo Qiao asked in her mind with a hopeful thought, is the elf I subdued okay? This system never ties strong twisted melons. You damn it, you're going to blow my head right now. Come on. Right now. Host confirmed. That was just a moment ago. After that, you can't blow up my little brain anymore. What a mischievous little system. Host, please hurry up. Are you urging me? Urge me. Hurry up for reincarnation. This system is never affected and will explode in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8. Speaking of you. That walking grass over there. What are you urging me to do? I'm here to help you. System baby, you misunderstood. How could I harm you? I love you too late. Jie Ge, that's how things are. Xingluo Qiao sat in front of the Johnny Turtle in the morning, offering his favorite tree fruit that had just been stolen from home with both hands. Jie Ge, you must help me this time. Seeing that Johnny Turtle was still hesitant, Xingluo Qiao, without any moral flattery, helped him peel the fruit of the tree, cut it into pieces, and handed it to Johnny Turtle's mouth. Johnny. The Johnny Turtle originally didn't intend to deal with this kid. He was Grandma Apricot's elf, so he naturally didn't want this kid to take risks. However, considering this kid's natural tendency to be promiscuous, even if he didn't follow along, he would definitely find a way to go. Johnny Turtle was eating the tree fruit handed over by Xingluo Qiao while leading the way, while Xingluo Qiao followed and fed like a dog's leg. He kept muttering in his heart. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river. Han Xian can endure the humiliation between his legs, and I, Xingluo Qiao, can also endure bending down to feed the turtle. He also has no choice, his own life is in danger. In just 1 week, that forest is very big. He is not sure if he can tame a little guy who is willing to walk with him as soon as he enters the forest. In this way, Johnny Turtle and his henchmen arrived at a forest located north of Xingluo Qiao's house. This forest has a beautiful name, called Luoxing Forest. It seems that a meteorite landed a long time ago, and this forest also appeared after the meteorite landed. Xingluo Qiao naturally didn't know. He just glanced at the sign on the roadside and at the watch on his wrist. When he arrived, it took half an hour. In other words, in order to avoid suspicion from his grandmother, he had to rush back an hour before lunch. This gave him half an hour to buffer himself from accidents. When his grandmother asked, he said he had gone to play in the small lake south with Johnny Turtle. Why did he know there was a lake to the south? There is a map on the roadside. There are also road signs. Xingluo Qiao took a deep breath and then looked at the lush forest in front of him, taking the first step. Well, without stepping on any dog poop or anything like that, Xingluo Qiao confidently led Johnny Turtle into the forest, even though it was a temporary card. But he also has to overcome the addiction of a trainer today. Walking inside for a while, just as Xingluo Qiao was holding his hand on a big tree and looking up, suddenly, a spider Pokémon fell down. It has a light blue head and abdomen, and a white horn on its head. Its teeth are red and its pupils are black. It has 3 pairs of feet, with yellow and dark blue patterns on the feet. It has 2 dark blue dots and a crescent-shaped mark on its abdomen. Xingluo Qiao took a step back, stabilized his figure, and then carefully looked at the Pokémon. He squinted his eyes and said, "Round silk spider. I don't know if its characteristic is sleeplessness or insect premonition. Or a hidden characteristic sniper." He, Xingluo Qiao, is known as the mobile Pokémon encyclopedia. He can memorize all the information characteristics of Pokémon, including those within Zhu, in their entirety. After all, that small game console was everything he had in his childhood. When he was a child, there were no other children willing to play with him. His grandmother saw that he liked to watch an animated film called Pokémon, which was the name I used to watch when I was a child. Later, she learned from the neighboring child that this animated film had games, so she bought him a game console and also bought him expensive game cartridges at that time. Although later on, Xingluo Qiao found out that what his grandmother bought at the legitimate price was only a pirated version, he still kept the pirated game in his own home. Xingluo Qiao shook his head, his eyes fixed, and said, "Johnny Turtle, hit it. Be gentle, just hit it and run it away." The Johnny Turtle, who had just mustered up his strength to knock off the round silk spider, suddenly slowed down, transitioning from a sprint to a jog. Then, he approached the round silk spider and collided lightly, probably with the same force as pushing and shoving between boys. The round silk spider was hit and was a bit angry. It sprayed silk thread from its abdomen, about to entangle the Johnny Turtle. Just as the turtle was feeling a bit confused, Xingluo Qiao's crisp childlike voice came to his ear. "Use a water gun. Let your mouth grow bigger, push the silk thread back with plenty of water." "Johnny." Johnny Turtle's eyes lit up and he followed suit directly. Although his mouth would greatly affect the power of the move, it was difficult to resist those silk threads with small water columns. In this situation, reducing the power of the water gun not only cancels out the opponent's move, but also directly causes some damage to the round silk spider. The large caliber water gun directly sprayed the silk thread of the round silk spider back, while also pouring water all over its body. The round silk spider suddenly choked on a few mouthfuls of water and quickly ran away. Xingluo Qiao smashes and smashes his mouth, it's not satisfying yet. The on.site command is different. There are too many turn-based restrictions and meticulous control of some moves, making reality and gaming completely different. Like the water gun just now, the first step is to train the user to have this thinking ability, and then Pokémon needs this control ability to perform this operation. Xingluo Qiao touched Johnny Turtle's cerebellum and said, "Amazing. Jie Ge. It's truly Jie Ge. Johnny. Johnny, Johnny." Originally, Johnny Turtle wanted to praise Xingluo Qiao a few times, but when Xingluo Qiao flattered him a few times, his little head tilted and he thought, "Yes. I'm really amazing." Then he looked at Xingluo Qiao and patted his small chest, indicating that everything had it. "We can handle it all." Xingluo Qiao squinted his eyes and said, "It's really comforting. Look at the appearance of Johnny Turtle. If you don't find a suitable one today, it won't be difficult to ask him for help later." So, the whole morning passed. Xingluo Qiao returned home on time and kept a secret from the world when he came to play with Johnny Turtle. Grandma Xing seemed unaware and only asked him what he had done this morning. After hearing Xingluo Qiao say that she had gone to the South Lake with Johnny Turtle to play, Grandma Xing didn't ask much, just served more food for Xingluo Qiao. After finishing their meal, Johnny Turtle and Apricot Blossom Joe once again fiercely attacked the starry forest. On this day, the round silk spider, round silk spider, only encountered a few times, encountered a unicorn beetle, and once even saw a group of large needle bees. If Apricot Blossom Joe hadn't pounced on Johnny Turtle and pressed it under his body, the almost insane Johnny Turtle would have been fired with a water gun. In the evening, Johnny Turtle and Xingluo Qiao dragged their tired bodies back home. After Xingluo Qiao finished dinner, they went straight to the bathroom and soaked in the bathtub that Grandma Xingluo had already prepared for hot water. He revealed half of his head and summarized the experience of the day. Firstly, most of the past experiences in the game had to be invalidated, with the biggest impact being the hit rate. Because he doesn't have a guidebook yet, he doesn't know the level of his own Johnny Turtle, but that group of wild elves should only have a single-digit level. Most Johnny Turtles can move in seconds, which means they are likely to have a level of over 20. This level of Johnny Turtles is a must-hit water gun in the game. Today, they hit fixed targets, which are those insect Pokémon that haven't moved much. They all missed 7 or 8 times. Of course, it's not all empty, but they missed the first time and later adjusted their position to hit. Another issue is the power of the moves, just like the water gun. If the Johnny Turtle can hit the water flow, the power of the water gun will undoubtedly be greater. If the water flow and impact can be increased, it will become another skill, the water cannon. That is to say, there is a promotion relationship in skills, but it seems that each skill has potential to be tapped. Xingluo Qiao rubbed his temples and showed an excited smile, just as he was preparing to make a plan in his heart. The sound of the system rang out in his mind. Ding, there are still 6 days left, you. You are really a smart, lovely, intelligent, beautiful, generous, knowledgeable, and reasonable system. Chapter 3. Abandoned Elves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flies by rapidly, 3 days have passed, and there are still 3 days left. Including the 4 days in the first day, Xingluo Qiao's biggest gain was his tacit understanding with the Johnny Turtle, allowing him to now command the Johnny Turtle to fight against other trainers. No one could tell that the Johnny Turtle was not his elf. With Johnny Turtle, Xingluo Qiao fought in and out in the starry forest, even the king of the strongest group of giant hornets in that forest, they won the battle. Of course, the main reason is that the level of the Johnny Turtle is too high. In fact, Xingluo Qiao didn't give much command. Cough cough, since then, all the big needle bees in the forest will bring some tree fruits as if to beg for them, and Xingluo Qiao's eyes will shine when they see them. However, this is also a coincidence. The king of this giant hornet population is a combatant, and after losing to the Johnny Turtle, he became the little brother of the Johnny Turtle. Naturally, the entire population became the little brother of the Johnny Turtle, Johnny Johnny. Johnny Turtle toed proudly as he walked through the forest. Now, on a street in Starfall Forest, he asked who his father was. Regardless of the chaos caused by the falling stars, Johnny said garlic. Behind Johnny Turtle, Xingluo Qiao was a bit worried. During this time, he didn't have to find a suitable one, but he wasn't willing to accept it. I don't know if the system only binds one yet. He still had some expectations, and before the time came to an end, he wanted to wait a little longer. Just as he was sighing in his heart, the sound of someone speaking suddenly came from the quiet forest. Xingluo Qiao immediately stopped and pressed down with his left hand. Johnny Turtle understood in a second. The little turtle lowered its body and quietly touched the direction of the sound with Xingluo Qiao. Don't follow me anymore. You can't even win a battle. What's the use of me wanting you? Xingluo Qiao frowned, and the first sentence he heard as he approached made him inexplicably angry. He fixed his eyes on it. This is already the depths of the starry forest, where a young man who looks not much bigger than Xingluo Qiao looks white and pure. At this moment, he forcefully shook off a light yellow Pokémon that was held on his lap. The Pokémon exclaimed, "Pie," and then fell to the ground. There was not much vegetation on the ground, so it was thrown on the muddy ground. Many stones scratched its body, but it gritted its teeth and stood up to walk towards its trainer. Pie. Pie Chio. It knows it's wrong, it will definitely win the next battle. Xingluo Qiao slightly poked her head out and saw the Pokémon, which was a light yellow little mouse with a pink battery pouch on her cheek. Its ears have black patterns around them, and its tail is also black. At this point, its light yellow fur is covered in dust and soil. Its little hands are gripping the legs of its trainer, and it knows that it will be unhappy if it holds the trainer again. Therefore, it can only use its hands to pull the trainer's pants and beg him. Pixiv was hatched from the egg given to him by the white boy from school. At first, he really liked it. Pixiv was very cute, and it wasn't until the school started fighting against subjects. Compared to other Pokémon from his classmates, Pixiu's strength is relatively small. At this stage, Pixiu's battery storage bag is also very small, and he cannot store much electrical energy. Since obtaining Pixiu, he has not been able to win a single battle. Looking at the grades of their own children, the father still blamed them for not cultivating Pixiu well, only knowing how to play with Pixiu. On the other hand, the mother felt that it was a problem with the elves. With the mother's insistence, they bought an egg from Usangia, the little fire dragon. Not long after the little fire dragon hatched, it defeated many of its classmates' elves. The young man regretted that he had rejected the elf offered by his father and chose the elf egg distributed by the school. The idea of relying on his parents to create a world on his own was too childish. Just like this Pixiu, weak and powerless, can only beg for it in this way to keep it. The young man was ruthless and kicked Pixiu away again, angrily saying, "Get out." He wanted to throw away his innocence and follow the path arranged by his parents. When one's wings are full, one can definitely break free from their parents and create a world of their own. Pixiu took another bite, and it only felt a lot of pain all over its body, so painful, but it doesn't want to leave the trainer. What it sees when it opens its eyes is him. He's his trainer. The trainer who sleeps with him every day. The trainer who is sick and anxious and can't do anything. Pixiu stood up trembling and slowly moved to the side of the pure young man. Many parts of his body had been scraped by sharp stones on the ground, and his dirty little hand once again pulled down his trainer's pants leg. As if enraged, the young man kicked Pixiu away again and took out a Pokémon ball from his body. His beautiful face was now full of ferocity, and he said, "Let you go, don't you? Then go to hell. Little fire dragon. Flame teeth." After the little fire dragon came out, it hesitated a bit. It recognized its companion in front of it and didn't want to attack them. "Do you also want to resist me?" The young man looked angrily at the little fire dragon. The little fire dragon dared not disobey his trainer's instructions now, and could only face his former partner, who had grown up, and the fangs of the flames appeared, ready to bite fiercely. From the beginning, Xingluo Qiao told himself that he was just watching the excitement. This was someone else's family business, and it was none of his own business. His elf, if he didn't want it, he wouldn't want it. Throw it into the forest. Then throw it away. It's not that I can't survive, is it, just being abandoned, not dying. Later, as he watched Pixiu walk towards his trainer time and time again, Xingluo Qiao told himself that this was his choice and that he had no right to intervene. He was just a passing young man and couldn't cause trouble for his grandmother. The guy in front of him, who had learned the skill of flame teeth during his time as Little Fire Dragon, was very wealthy at first sight. The flame tooth skill machine, last time I watched it on TV, it cost 2,000 to 3,000. I may not be able to learn it yet. If I were to confront him when the Little Fire Dragon of the White Clean Youth released its flame teeth, his mind was still engaged in the battle between heaven and man, but the innocent young man was also foolish. He was about to be hit when suddenly a little brat appeared next to him. The flame tooth that Little Fire Dragon was supposed to bite on Pixiu's body directly hit this kid's shoulder. Xingluo Qiao hugged Pixiu in her arms, and several blood holes were punctured on her left shoulder by Little Fire Dragon. Blood trickled down his entire arm, staining it red. Green smoke was still emitting around the blood hole, but Xingluo Qiao, who had finally regained consciousness, looked not at his wound but at the Pixiv in his arms for the first time. "Little one, are you okay?" Pixiv lifted his small face and looked at the child in front of him. The sunlight shone through his black hair and shone on Pichio's face. He smelled the pleasant smell of the child and also saw the wound he had been bitten by the flame teeth. He anxiously waved his small hand, Pichio. "Don't worry about me, take a look at yourself." Xingluo Qiao seemed to have missed it, and with his right hand, he took out a good injury medicine from his pocket as a precautionary measure. After spraying it on Pixiv, a miraculous scene occurred, and Pichio's injuries were visibly healed. Seeing that Pixiv had improved a lot, Xingluo Qiao finally stood up holding it. At this point, the Johnny Turtle has already exploded with anger. This is his little master. How dare this red flame-throwing lizard in front of him harm him? It stood in front of Xingluo Qiao, waiting for Xingluo Qiao's command. With these few days of interaction, it had subconsciously regarded this small child as a recognized trainer. Xingluo Qiao slowly turned around, her black eyes filled with a bone-chilling coldness. "Your little fire dragon bit me. If I report it to the police, according to the Chinese trainer's criminal law, driving elves to harm people depends on the situation, starting from 1 year without a cap. That is to say, you should go in and take it for at least 1 year." The young man by Jing panicked and said, "You came out on your own. I just want to deal with my own elf. Huaxia Kingdom Elf Protection Law. Malicious damage to elves, depending on the situation, starts from 1 year and is not capped. You have to enter both paths and stay for a year." Why does Xingluo Qiao know? Because he's just talking nonsense now. The pure young man has completely numbed his paws, he cannot be caught. No way. He looked at the child in front of him, who was much younger than him, and then at the scar on his shoulder. A terrible idea arose in his heart, but he quickly dispelled it. He didn't have the courage yet. "Give me this child's Pokémon ball." Chapter 4. System Binding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah. Don't you have a Johnny Turtle? Why do you want that useless Pokémon? The white clean youth was somewhat reluctant. His Pokémon ball was registered in the league, which means it was equivalent to a legal Pokémon position. He has now released Pixiv, and after releasing the Pokémon, he has 7 days to regret it. After 7 days, this Pokémon ball can be used again. It is also reasonable for him to use this Pokémon ball to subdue the second Pokémon. Xingluo Qiao also knows the rules of the alliance. Generally, novice trainers are only allowed to tame 1 elf, and in special circumstances, they need to apply to the alliance for a report. What he wants now seems to be an elf ball, but in reality, he wants a specially licensed elf position. The innocent young man looked into Xingluo Qiao's cold eyes and then at his bleeding wound. He gritted his teeth, deleted the fingerprint on the Poké ball, and threw it to Xingluo Qiao. He gritted his teeth and said, "I have unbound this Poké ball, all you need to do is rebind it and register it at the Poké Center. Let's talk about it for now. This Pixiv has nothing to do with me anymore. You'd better not appear in front of me again." After speaking, he left without looking back. At this moment, Pixiv did not look at his former trainer anymore. Instead, Pai kept shouting and pressing his small hand on the wound where Xingluo Qiao was bitten out. Seeing the blood uncontrollably, tears were about to flow down his face. The little dragon that bit Xingluo Qiao looked at her with guilt, then at Pixiv, and finally had to leave with its trainer. After the pure young man left, Xingluo Qiao's expression suddenly became fierce. "Wipe. Pain and pain." He shouted while taking out another bottle of human-friendly wound medicine, twisted open the bottle cap, and poured it fiercely into his own wound. See. White smoke suddenly rose from the wound, and Xingluo Qiao almost bit her back teeth in pain. It was truly a good thing that Grandma hid under the bed. When he looked at his wound again, there were only a few small red dots left. This level of injury medicine costs only 70,000 to 80,000 yuan per small bottle to watch TV commercials. The bottle under Grandma's bed is much bigger than on TV. It's broken. It seemed like there was too much pouring just now. The originally full bottle is now only 2/3 left. As Xingluo Qiao was pondering whether to add some water, Pichio's voice rang out again. Pi. Pichio lowered his head with a desolate expression, then jumped off Xingluo Qiao and walked towards the depths of the forest. The former trainer gave up on himself, indicating that he was a bad child. That human saved him and I cannot cause him any trouble. Before taking a few steps, it felt the back of its fate being lifted by someone. Then it came to Xingluo Qiao's shoulder. Be my elf. Pi. Pi. Pai Qiao felt like he had heard it wrong. Do the guy in front of me want to be my trainer? I am clearly so weak. When it saw Xingluo Qiao's sincere smiling face, it couldn't hold its tension. Pai. Pai Qiao. Pai Qiao hugged Xingluo Qiao's neck, tears as big as beans kept flowing down. He cried for a while, perhaps because it had been too tired all day today. It hugged Xingluo Qiao's neck and fell asleep like a pendant. Even if it was asleep, its little hands tightly grasped Xingluo Qiao's clothes, afraid he would run away. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao carefully picked up Pichio. It couldn't sleep well in its current position and could only try to gently remove its little hand. However, the little one grabbed it too tightly. Xingluo Qiao could only say softly, "Don't worry, I won't leave. I've been there all along." Pichu's little hand slowly let go and didn't let Pichu enter the Poké ball. Xingluo Qiao just hugged Pichu and walked towards home. Along the way, he didn't even think about colluding with Johnny Turtle. With so many medicinal herbs for his injuries, he definitely had to have a showdown with his grandmother. It's better to honestly explain everything. After all, a legitimate elf position can't be concealed, and as for watering, he naturally can't make it. After all, it's a life-saving medicine. So, Johnny Turtle and Xingluo Qiao sat respectfully in front of Grandma Xing. In front of them were a bottle of slightly used elf healing potion, a bottle of 1/3 used human healing potion, and Pichio, who had just woken up and was unknowingly nervous, along with its elf ball. After listening, Grandma Xing furrowed her brows slightly, and a round and rolling black ghostly Pokémon appeared in her shadow, which was Gung Gui. This Gung Ghost looked around Xingluo Qiao, nodded at Grandma Xing, and finally returned to her shadow. Grandma Xing finally breathed a sigh of relief. She first touched Pichio's little head, smiled and made some Pokémon food for him. Then she looked at Xingluo Qiao and said, "Why didn't you let Johnny Turtle save this little guy? If I let Johnny Turtle take action, the nature would be different. If that guy intentionally misinterprets it, he may become an elf that I forcibly snatched from him. That guy's little fire dragon level is not high, but he has learned flame teeth. According to the average number of times, spending over 100,000 yuan to expand the skill pool for an initial elf in a family would definitely come in handy. I don't want to cause you any trouble. To be honest. My mind hasn't figured it out yet, but my body rushed out first." After a period of silence, Grandma Xing sighed and pushed the good wound medicine back to her. At the same time, she took out 6 bottles of the same size of good wound medicine and some miscellaneous potions from the nearby cabinet. Xingluo Qiao couldn't recognize them all, but he knew how much these things were worth. Our family is not short of money or resources, and we are not afraid of anyone. Xingluo Qiao stared blankly at the old man in front of him. Next time you encounter such a situation, don't worry about it. Grandma will support you. Finally, Grandma Xing checked Xingluo Qiao's body again, and finally reassured him to take a shower and tidy up. She also threw away her torn clothes. With a trendy attitude, Grandma picked up her phone and bought a few trendy sets of clothes for her grandson online. Then, she said to the empty room, "Hudi." A elf quietly appeared, and Hudi looked at her trainer with some shame. Grandma Xing sighed and said, "It's not your fault. Sometimes even I can't even know what this child is thinking. How is Qiao Qiao? How is his talent? Hu Di telepathically said in Grandma Xing's heart, youth comes from the blue. Grandma Xing looked at Hu Di with some surprise, knowing that her old buddy wouldn't exaggerate. That stinky kid, in Hu Di's eyes, was actually stronger than before. She smiled and said, when she gets old, young people should let him start his own business. But how can parents not show up when their own child is beaten? Hu Di sensed Grandma Xing's thoughts and nodded, his figure disappearing. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao had just taken a shower and was holding a pile of props. Advanced numbing powder, advanced detoxifying powder, advanced sobering medicine, universal medicine, good injury medicine, special injury medicine. Xingluo Qiao waved away all the numbers he had just calculated in his mind and spread his hands. Stop pretending, show your cards. I am a very wealthy second generation. Ding, the system binding has been completed. Xingluo Qiao finally realized and muttered, are you moving so slowly? It's been 2 hours. The system simply ignored him and said to itself, the strongest elf system has been successfully bound. The bound object is Pixiv, and the data is as follows. HP 20 attack 40 defense 15 special attack 35 special defense 35 speed 60 total 205. Xingluo Qiao nodded, just like the race value of Pixiv in his memory, it was a very regular backmang. Above, the host does not need to remember it in the future. Because this system has already lifted all restrictions on Pixiv. It's lifted. What kind of thing is it lifted? This Pixiv is no longer limited by its race value, and its potential has become infinite. If there is enough time and the host cultivates it wholeheartedly, it can be a place to wrestle with the creator god of this universe. Xingluo Qiao was immediately excited and said, how long will it take to reach that level? 1,000 years. Do I look like a turtle? Alright, this system has crashed. You can handle it yourself. Xingluo Qiao suddenly stopped in Bumbu and said, don't you leave all the elves for me to be fucked up once. It's really not possible to unlock the Johnny Turtle below as well. You have so much nonsense, kid. If this system gives you another one, that alpaca will be in a hurry. Wait. Don't leave. Waveguide power, superpowers, get me a share. I really can't do anything about you. Nah. I've left you the seeds of Waveguide's power and superpowers. Your kid has good aptitude already, just go cultivate yourself. What are you doing with me? You don't even call yourself the system anymore. Xingluo Qiao squinted her eyes and noticed Huadian. Don't argue, that's all. If you ask me for any more benefits, I won't give it to you. The sound of the system in my mind has completely turned into a somewhat lazy male voice, and Xingluo Qiao's expression is straight. Wipe it off. You're really human. What kind of big shot is this? The lazy male voice appeared somewhat speechless. Your child's worldview is rebuilding faster and faster. Don't ask, it's useless to ask. This Pixiv is a gift from me. I originally wanted to play normally as a system for a while, but that alpaca discovered it too quickly. I don't want to greet it directly. That's it. You and your Pixiv have unlimited possibilities, don't be constrained, be free. The final sound turned into electronic noise, and then Xingluo Qiao's mind became empty. Alright, the first protagonist in history to start the 4th chapter of the system and run away has appeared. Xingluo Qiao is a bit dazed now, not sure if what she just experienced is true. He reached out his hand and felt inside, then a hint of blue energy appeared from within him, appearing so vividly in front of him. Then he tried again, he could move an eraser the size of a nail cap. Come on, it's true. You don't have to struggle anymore. The reshaping of the worldview was completed, and Xingluo Qiao took a deep breath before slowly exhaling. He had an unprecedented sense of relief, the system was gone, and the feeling of carrying something was gone. He was now a normal teenager of 12 or 13 years old, with an infinite potential Qiao, carrying a waveguide and spiritual power. He was an ordinary teenager. Chapter 5. Exercise and First Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Xingluo Qiao got up from the soft big bed, stretched lazily, but suddenly heard the sound of something landing. What kind of thing? At this moment, his drowsiness dissipated completely. Looking under the bed, Qiao rubbed his big eyes and looked as if he hadn't woken up. I didn't pay attention when I stretched. I'm sorry for the moment. Xingluo Qiao scratched his head and held Pixiv in his arms. In an instant it was a new name he had thought about for Pixiv for a long time last night, and Pixiv also liked it very much. Pixiv affectionately rubbed his head against Xingluo Qiao. All right. Get up. Xingluo Qiao took Pixiv and walked to the wash basin together. One person, one elf, began to wash their faces and brush their teeth. Pixiv used the elf-specific items sent by Grandma Xing, and the little one learned Xingluo Qiao's operation and brushed his teeth with a dignified expression. Xingluo Qiao couldn't close his mouth as he looked at Pixiu's cute appearance. He started by opening the toothpaste and taught Pixiu how to squeeze toothpaste and brush his teeth. Someone wanted to say, should we teach him how to brush his teeth? A cold knowledge, brushing teeth is not done horizontally, it's done up and down. Unexpectedly. Brushing horizontally on both sides can damage teeth to a certain extent. I only found out when I first saw the dentist. Funny. After washing his face and brushing his teeth with Pixiu, Xingluo Qiao placed Pixiu on his head and took the little one out of the room. Good morning, Grandma. Xingluo Qiao greeted Grandma as usual. Pixiu. Get up. Good morning, little Pixiu, too. Grandma Xing looked at Pixiu, who was already full of vitality, and a smile appeared on her face. Oops. Grandma, Pixiu has a name. It's called the moment now. Xingluo Qiao bit into the big meat bun and spoke to Grandma while eating. Don't choke, you child. You're in such a hurry to eat. So, you're already in a small moment now. Grandma Xing gently touched the small head of the moment, ate the special food for Pixiu, and nodded forcefully. Last night, Xingluo Qiao spoke in bed for a long time with an instant. After he couldn't resist falling asleep, he looked at his new trainer in front of him in an instant. It knew that he might be the luckiest Pokémon, so it wouldn't disappoint any expectations of Xingluo Qiao. Never. After breakfast, Xingluo Qiao happily pulled Pixiu to roll and play on the large grassland of his own breeding house. One person and one elf chased after the walking grass, roasted sausages with the little dragon, and even touched the feathers on Popo's body. After playing for a while, Xingluo Qiao squatted down and looked at Pixiu lying on the grass, saying, in an instant, do you want to become stronger? Pi. In an instant, he concentrated his mind and stood up, shouting firmly. For the sake of the young man in front of him, he must become stronger and stronger. Xingluo Qiao saw Pixiu's fighting spirit high, smiled and touched his little head. He searched in his mind and found that during the Pixiu stage, the little guy had mastered countless skills. Let's experiment first. There are generally 5 skills that a Pixiu can learn, the most basic of which are electric shock, tail wagging, electromagnetic waves, angel kisses, and one trick. After experiencing the operation of the system yesterday, Pixiu no longer has the situation of being bound by race values. Moreover, according to that guy's level, it is highly likely that Pixiu will only need to increase his own ability value and learn many skills without considering evolution. Moreover, according to Xingluo Qiao's perception. Maybe now Pixiu, however, Xingluo Qiao has no plans to expand his skill pool for Pixiu at the moment. After conducting some experiments, Xingluo Qiao probably has some idea in his mind. Pixiu's current physical fitness is indeed poor, and it is obvious that he has not undergone exercise and cultivation, and all attributes are not very good, except for speed. Xingluo Qiao touched Pichio's little brain, praised it for a while, and his eyes showed contemplation. Soon, he had an idea. In the next few days, Xingluo Qiao asked his grandmother to bring some training equipment, not only for elves, but also for humans. Since it is training, he, as a trainer, naturally needs to work hard with Pichu. A month passed like this, and it was very simple for them. Pichu and Xingluo Qiao got up early and ran every day, then came back to eat and had breakfast. After taking a break, the two began to train and use their skills. Due to his small weight and lack of sharp claws on his small hands, Pichu was unable to learn the two most useful skills of impact and grabbing in the early stages. Therefore, Xingluo Qiao shifted his focus to speed and special attack. In this month, there has been a great improvement in speed in an instant. Should one truly be a hitchhiker? The current Pichu has a speed that is twice as fast as before. In terms of special attacks, the sudden progress is also very terrifying. A week ago, its electric shock was only as thick as chopsticks, but now it is as thick as a child's arm. As for other data, he laughed to death, he had no idea. The system of the evil father ran away on the fourth day of his rebirth. The progress of Xingluo Qiao's superpowers and waveguide power. It's okay not to mention it. The power of the waveguide has changed from being able to squeeze out one strand to two strands, and the superpower has changed from being able to lift a rubber the size of half a little fingernail to being the size of half a little fingernail. Is this TM called progress? Xingluo Qiao sighed and sat up from the grass, looking at Pi in the distance. Pi. Pi. In the moment of constantly turning around and shaking his tail, Xingluo Qiao temporarily put his own affairs behind his head. After he told his grandmother, although her grandson suddenly awakened his two abilities to some surprise, she didn't think much about it. She told Xingluo Qiao to continue exercising and practicing her abilities, and she went to find a solution. In an instant. Come here. Xingluo Qiao shouted, and in an instant heard his trainer's greeting. He quickly came to Xingluo Qiao's front. Xingluo Qiao picked it up in an instant, and it still felt so good to the touch, soft and fluffy. Only he knew how much energy this child had under his small body now. In the present moment, I have only mastered a new skill, which is the flash of lightning. In addition, I have completely mastered electric shock and electromagnetic waves in an instant. What is the concept of complete mastery? In an instant, you can now use the electric shock skill to accurately hit the small coin thrown by Xingluo Qiao and keep it from falling. Every electric shock can accurately hit the bottom of the flipped coin, maintaining an upward force on the coin. As for the angel's kiss, trickery, and wagging their tails, they seemed reluctant to practice for a moment, and Xingluo Qiao didn't care either. There were too many choices available for a moment, and not learning these things would not hurt much. Xingluo Qiao touched his chin. There are still 2 months left before school starts. At that moment, my current strength should be able to compete with that little dragon from that day, but what he wants is never evenly matched. Xingluo Qiao grinned. It's best not to let him encounter that little scumbag again. This time, there's no need to worry about his family, and he doesn't have much feelings for his former trainer in an instant. He looks forward to the day when he can break through that kid's team in an instant. Jie Ge, you have a lot of things to do every day. According to reason, I shouldn't bother you, but you see, it was also you who came to our house at that moment. Can you bear to see it feeling depressed because it didn't have a companion to train against? Xingluo Qiao pressed Johnny Turtle's shoulder, and he didn't want to go to Xingluo Forest, but it was too far and the efficiency was too low. With a high-quality companion training at the moment, of course, the practical experience was easy to brush up on. Under the soft and hard treatment of Xingluo Qiao, Johnny Turtle quickly lost and patted his small chest, saying that it was up to him. Xingluo Qiao took a moment and followed Johnny Turtle to the back of his house, where there was a small battlefield that was just enough for him to use. Johnny Johnny. Johnny Turtle flipped over and Handsome entered, waving at the moment on Xingluo Qiao's shoulder to signal that Xingluo Qiao could start. Go ahead, in an instant. Xingluo Qiao smiled and flashed in an instant. The speed was surprisingly fast, and Johnny Turtle didn't even see clearly. In an instant, he was already on the field. Pie. In an instant, he landed on all fours, his two adorable ears pressed back against his body, his whole body highly tense, fully immersed in waiting for Xingluo Qiao's command. Jie Ge, we're about to start. Xingluo Qiao kindly reminded Jenny Turtle. Although Jenny Turtle was just startled by the speed in an instant, it is still Jie Ge. Johnny. Seeing Johnny Turtle prepared, Xingluo Qiao didn't hesitate either. In an instant, a flash of lightning, left rear. Charge up. Pie. After a short and powerful response, the speed exploded to the extreme, and it didn't want to lose. Johnny Turtle concentrated his attention this time and finally caught the fleeting figure. A predicted water gun was fired, and in an instant, a smile appeared at the corner of Xingluo Qiao's mouth. Variable speed. Pie. On the field, the speed suddenly seems to slow down and be accelerated, and this switching speed is very fast. This caused Johnny Turtle's water gun to go blank just now, and the subsequent water guns, at this eerie speed, surprisingly didn't hit a single drop in an instant. Speaking in a blink of an eye, the fastest lightning flashed directly to the left rear of the Johnny Turtle, and the lightning lingered on his cheeks. Let Jie see our strength. Electric shock. Thunderbolt. Pie. Qiao. The power that had already been prepared in an instant was compressed again in its hands. Then, just as Johnny Turtle could turn his head, the arrow formed by that lightning hit him directly. Unlike a normal electric shock hit, a typical electric shock will explode on the surface of the elf's body, causing damage. However, the lightning arrow developed by Xingluo Qiao in an instant, due to the concentration of energy, if the opponent does not deliberately use the move to resist or has excellent defense, the entire lightning arrow will directly penetrate the opponent's body. The effect of Xingluo Qiao is also unclear, after all, he has never actually fought before. Now he is also curious to look at Johnny Turtle. At this moment, the Jenny Turtle only feels like there are little ants crawling inside its body. Electric current kept flowing out of his body, Johnny. The Johnny Turtle gritted its teeth, and the water system energy burst out on its body. The huge water system energy dissipated the remaining electricity inside its body. Xingluo Qiao saw that the Johnny Turtle was fine, so he let go. The strongest move in an instant could not cause too much damage to the Johnny Turtle. Should this Johnny Turtle truly be his grandmother's elf? And if Xingluo Qiao guessed correctly, there should be an unchanging stone on this Johnny Turtle's body. In an instant, don't miss this opportunity. Use the electrical energy around Johnny Turtle. Use electromagnetic waves to weave a net for us, Jie Ge. In an instant, the speed rose again, and its agile figure quickly moved around the body of the Johnny Turtle. Soon, strands of electric light wrapped around the turtle's body. When it returned to Xingluo Qiao's side in an instant, the entire process was only a little over 2 seconds, and the Johnny Turtle was completely unable to resist effectively. Johnny Turtle also knew that his little brother's speed was really fast, so he simply used it to shrink into his shell. It was now hit by electromagnetic waves and entered a paralyzed state. Forcefully using its skills was likely to be caught by that kid's loophole. That strange electric shock really hurt him a bit. Although the damage was not high, it hurt. Now shrink into the shell to keep things unchanged and adapt to changes. Chapter 6 Jie Ge. No. Don't come over. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xingluo Qiao saw that Johnny Turtle had shrunk into its shell, and a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In an instant. Let Jie turn around. Pie. Jenny Turtle. What kind of thing just starts spinning? It quickly understood what Xingluo Qiao meant by turning around. In an instant, he grabbed the shell of the Johnny Turtle with one hand, and then the entire Pokémon quickly began to spin in circles. Jenny's turtle shell is spinning faster and faster. After reaching the limit of speed in an instant, he finally released his hand. At this point, he was also panting a bit, and Xingluo Qiao also noticed this. Based on past experience, his physical strength has already been exhausted by more than half. In an instant, charge up and aim. When Jie Ge reaches out his head, the lightning flashes and hits its chin. Pi. In an instant, his body tightened again, and his two big eyes locked tightly on the shell of the Johnny Turtle. Johnny. Johnny Turtle was about to vomit up. Just as its little head protruded, it saw a small yellow figure quickly approaching it in front of it, and then its chin hurt. Its two eyes seemed to see many small stars. Take advantage of now. Seize Jie Ge in an instant. Give him a full electric shock. Xingluo Qiao waved his hand and almost immediately grabbed the body of Johnny Turtle upon hearing the command. Pi. Qiao. After a dazzling current, Pichu collapsed to the ground exhausted. And Johnny Turtle was electrocuted black all over, but it was obvious that he had not lost his fighting consciousness. Apricot Joe looked at Jenny Turtle and began to complain roast that his grandmother never lost resources on Jenny Turtle. Just now, with that whole set, a normal 20-something level Johnny Turtle wouldn't be able to stand like this. At this moment, its expression was disheartened and it lost again. Will one's own trainer also abandon oneself? Just as he was lying on the ground, lost in thought, a pair of warm hands picked it up and raised it high. In an instant. You're also amazing. You're so handsome. The lightning arrow we just fired and the gear we practiced were all used very well. There was no stage fright at all. That's really amazing. Xingluo Qiao generously praised and affectionately rubbed his face against the moment. Pi. Didn't he lose? Won't you be scolded and insulted by the trainer after losing? Johnny Turtle also slowed down at this moment, with a lingering expression of fear, and walked over to Pichu, saying, Johnny Johnny. Little one, you are very strong. Pi. Pi Qiao. But I haven't hit you before, Johnny Johnny. Johnny. I am several years older than you. You have only been following my master for a month and have already made such great progress. It's amazing. Pi Qiao. Really? Johnny. Of course. Watching the two elves chatting, Xingluo Qiao inexplicably felt excluded, bullying herself and not understanding elf language, right? At this moment, Grandma Xing sitting in the shop saw through the entire process of the battle between Jenny Turtle and Pi Qiao. Grandma Xing couldn't close her mouth with a smile. Her grandson's commanding ability had already begun to show its sharpness, and the relentless attacking momentum was very obvious. In battle, when faced with the skills used by the opponent's elves, their reactions were also very fast. Surprisingly, their own Johnny Turtle only let go of 2 skills from beginning to end. If the level difference between the two elves is even smaller, the ending just now would be that the Johnny Turtle was instantly killed by Pichu. The combination of the variable speed electric flash at the beginning and the lightning arrow created by oneself is enough to beat the water system elves of the same generation to death. It's useless to hold on. Don't forget, the lightning flash was originally an attack skill. However, Xingluo Qiao and Pichu directly gave up the offensive nature of the lightning flash. If the opponent used to defend, Xingluo Qiao could definitely use the lightning flash to attack. Grandma Xing took out several large cardboard boxes from her shadow, which contained the clothes she had bought for Xingluo Qiao, a new backpack, and a learning machine with 100,000 volts and a steel tail. If anyone sees these 2 large boxes of learning machines, they might just drool. Grandma Xing, on the other hand, completely ignored the 2 valuable cardboard boxes and let Gum Gui throw them into a corner. What Grandma was thinking now was the Pichu. Despite its exceptional talent, how could anyone be so foolish as to abandon it? My good grandson indeed has the ability to become a champion. In an instant, what we need to do now is exercise. Raise our physical limit. We also need to strengthen the use of electrical energy. Only with abundant physical strength and more electrical energy can we become stronger. Pi. Good trainer. We still have 2 months left before the start of school. Before the start of school, we need to press Jie Ge to the ground and beat him. Pi Qiao. No problem, trainer. Johnny Turtle eating tree fruits on the side, Johnny. Little master, you have changed, and now you don't even want to call me Jie Ge. Xingluo Qiao and Pixiv continue to exercise outside, and Pichio's various abilities are also steadily improving. Is there a bottleneck? Threshold. It doesn't exist. Unless it reaches the level of touching the law, Pixiv will not have any bottlenecks. It was dinner time, and after finishing the meal, Grandma tried on several sets of clothes for Xingluo Qiao. They were a blue and white denim shirt with a white T-shirt underneath and a linen workwear pants, while the other set looked much more flashy. The sky blue T-shirt had this strange red symbol, and the bottom was a loose bell-bottomed pants. These pants all have one characteristic. They have many pockets. This is what my grandmother prepared for her good grandson when she went to school. The school uniform is only needed for meetings and important occasions, and there are no other requirements from the school. And these multi-pocket pants can conveniently carry some medicine and other things. Grandma Xing bought a waist bag, shoulder bag, and backpack for Xingluo Qiao, but he didn't like to carry them. Unless he travels in the future, Xingluo Qiao doesn't have the intention of carrying backpacks. After trying on the clothes, Grandma finally pulled out 2 bundles of learning machines like pork from the corner, and Xingluo Qiao almost knelt down for the old man. Grandma Xing now, in Xingluo Qiao's eyes, has already emitted infinite light. These 2 skills were carefully chosen by Xingluo Qiao. Iron Tail can expand the strike surface, and during this period, Pixiv has also trained his tail. It's not a big problem, is it 100,000 volts? I don't know if he can learn them before leaving, but the upper limit of Pichio's electrical energy is a bit low. The next morning, Xingluo Qiao was rarely awakened. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. Is anyone there? Open the door quickly. I'm here to retrieve the elves. Xingluo Qiao rubbed her swollen temples and called out Johnny Turtle and Pixiv to go downstairs. The young man below had an anxious expression on his face, occasionally looking back as if someone was chasing him from behind. Johnny Turtle, water gun. A crisp male voice sounded, and the young man was overjoyed to find that he had knocked on the door when he was sprayed with water. He wiped off the water on his face and realized it was a child. I couldn't help but feel a little angry and said, "What are you doing?" "I'm here to retrieve my fork-tailed ferret, give it to me quickly." Xingluo Qiao didn't speak, just pointed to the nearby sign. Business hours. 9 a.m. 12:00 p.m. 14:00 18:00 p.m. The young man finally realized and looked at his watch. It was 3 a.m. "No wonder this child has a stinky face," he said awkwardly. "I'm sorry, but I'm not really in a hurry. I must get the fork-tailed ferret right away. Otherwise, when the people behind me catch up, I'll be ruined. If you owe money, repay it, if you owe life, repay it." Xingluo Qiao frowned and smelled a smell of trouble. "If you're in big trouble, I'll give you the fork-tailed ferret back now. Is it possible that it will die with you?" The young man was taken aback, and the air suddenly fell silent. After more than 10 seconds, the young man took a deep breath and looked at Xingluo Qiao with a complex expression, saying, "Just pretend you haven't seen me, kid. If I can get out of trouble, I will come back to pick up the fork-tailed ferret." After finishing speaking, the young man was about to leave, but was stopped by Xingluo Qiao. He sighed and gave way, then said, "Go in and stay in the 3rd floor miscellaneous room. Today, you won't die. Chapter 7. The Storm of Being Pressed Again. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. With a yawn, Xingluo Qiao closed the door again. He was about to go upstairs, but suddenly stopped and said to the empty first floor, "Could you please? If anyone comes knocking on me later, I'll scare you away." After that, he went upstairs without looking back. Who D in the corner of the first floor? I'll wipe it. Did he find me? It shouldn't be. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao. Wokao is so awkward, I am so second. There won't be nothing on the first floor, will there? With a sense of shame, Xingluo Qiao got into bed with Pixiv and the Johnny Turtle, holding the furry Pixiv and flipping the smooth head of the Johnny Turtle, which I didn't originally want to hit. He fell asleep in such a daze. The sunshine fell on Xingluo Qiao's eyelids. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, and had breakfast as usual, but it seemed like he had forgotten something. When it was time for lunch, Xingluo Qiao finally realized and wiped it off. There is still a living person on the third floor. Just as he rushed up the third floor in a hurry, Grandma Xing waved her hand and Gung Gui lifted him back to the dining table. At the same time, Grandma spoke up, "That young man left before you woke up. He's safe now, and the forked-tailed ferret has taken him away." Xingluo Qiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Since the other party had taken the forked-tailed ferret away, it should be safe. "Grandma, who is he? Why would he?" Before Xingluo Qiao could finish asking, Grandma Xing said, "You may see each other again in the future. As for what happened, Qiao, you're still young. Don't ask, eat well and train hard. When you grow up, if you don't look for these things, they will also haunt you." Xingluo Qiao didn't understand his grandmother's words, but it didn't stop him from nodding. In an office filled with a high-tech atmosphere, a middle-aged man with a strong and gloomy expression and a large vertical back is touching a cat boss with smooth and shiny fur, while a person is kneeling in front of him. The middle-aged man appeared somewhat impatient and asked, "Where's the information?" "That guy. Lost. No. We were supposed to catch him. But when we were on our way, we didn't notice and entered." The speaker nervously swallowed his saliva at this moment. The middle-aged man's expression had changed from impatience to solemnity. "What has entered?" "Enter. Entered the restricted area you marked." "Boss, it's not my fault." "It's all my fault, that stupidly Songqiang. I said." At this point, the middle-aged man's eyebrows furrowed deeper and deeper, interrupting his subordinates from shirking responsibility. He spoke lightly and said, "Shut up, since we have a relationship with those few people. The entire line has been cut off for me, don't leave any trace, understand?" "Yes." After learning that the young man was fine, Xingluo Qiao went on to train with Pixiv. Xingluo Qiao rarely put Pixiv in the poke ball, unpacked the packaging of the learning machine, and took out the CD inside. Although he didn't know the principle, it seemed that all he needed was to align the hole in the middle of the learning machine CD with the protruding button on the poke ball. After aligning and inserting, a faint white energy flickered on the skill disc. This disc was called Iron Tail, later referred to as Iron Tail. After using one, Xingluo Qiao released Pixiv to see if he had learned it. This was a water grinding technique, and looking at the dozen skill discs, Pixiv thought it would be difficult to learn. Without giving Xingluo Qiao a chance to slap him in the face, Pixiv had already learned it when he saw the fifth disc. After Xingluo Qiao praised it for a while, he picked up a 100,000-volt skill disc and struck while the iron was hot. This time it cost quite a bit, because Pixiv had a problem with the upper limit of his electrical energy storage. It took him 30 sheets to learn. Looking at Xingluo Qiao, he gritted his teeth, but it was normal. If Pixiv were to train for another 2 months before learning, it would be like Iron Tail, requiring less light discs. After using the skill disc, Xingluo Qiao looked at the moment and used these two skills again. 100,000 volts is truly 100,000 volts. Unlike basic electric shocks, this move does not rely solely on the energy within Pokémon. It releases the energy within the elf's body and triggers the electrical energy in the air to launch an attack. When Pixiv learns this move, it can be said that his strong attack ability has been greatly enhanced. As for Iron Tail, this skill is like giving a sword to an instant without claws and a strong physique, making it effective in close combat against those large elves who excel in power. The future path of the moment is not yet clear to Xingluo Qiao. It's not that he doesn't know how to start, but that the moment is very special. It has no upper limit, which means it has infinite possibilities. Unlike other Pokémon, the moment can theoretically achieve omnipotence and all essence. However, in the early stage, Xingluo Qiao is still prepared to let the moment be based on speed, supplemented by Iron Tail and electric skills, and the world's martial arts, only fast and unbreakable. As long as you master the speed and the power of the skills. Xingluo Qiao can even see the scene of frantically wearing a team in an instant. He's Johnny Turtle on the side. It's over. I said it was my water gun that day that flooded this child's brain. Look, everyone is laughing foolishly now. Time flies by rapidly during daily training and play, and unconsciously, it's time to go to school. In an instant. A flash of lightning. Johnny. On the small battlefield, Pixi's speed is faster. 2 months ago, the Johnny Turtle could still see the trajectory of Pixi's movements clearly, but now it can only vaguely capture some of Pixi's movements. At this moment, Pixi's speed suddenly surged, while the Johnny Turtle nervously looked around. Where is it coming from now? On the right. On the left. Or later. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao's entire skin had turned wheat-colored. Throughout the summer vacation, he spent most of his time training with Pixiv outside, and getting a little sunburned was inevitable. A healthy wheat-colored skin made him look even more sunny. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao also showed a sunny and cheerful big boy's smile. Iron Tail. Breakthrough in the face. Johnny Turtle was a bit upset. Has he already disrespected himself so much? Dare to face it head on. You see, if your brother does it or not, then you're done. Jie Ge. A bright blue light beam is emitted from the mouth of Johnny Turtle. It is the foam light. Don't stop. Strike the power on the tail. Use the Iron Tail to open it. Pixiv received the command and without hesitation began to execute it. Pixi's short black tail flickered with a white light. The light is more and more concise with the close distance between Pixiv and foam light. Pixiv is about to collide with foam light. However, at this moment, Xingluo Qiao did not give any further command. He believed that in his moment, he must know his own thoughts. At the critical moment, Pixiv suddenly sank his small body and hit the Iron Tail to directly hit the foam light into the sky. Johnny Turtle didn't have time to pull back his force at this moment, and he tilted his entire turtle backwards. After hitting him so many times, Johnny Turtle knew that something was not going to happen. So I quickly used to shrink into the shell, and then the entire turtle used water jet directly inside the shell. The skill of water jet appeared on the turtle shell, shining brightly, and rushed towards the moment with the turtle shell. Well done, Jie Ge. I taught you how to use it well. Xingluo Qiao smiled and praised Johnny Turtle, then his smile became even brighter. Unfortunately, what you are facing is, in an instant. And me. In an instant. Electric shock. Thunderbolt arrow. Pixiv. In an extremely short amount of time, Pixi's small hands swung out 5 lightning arrows in a row. The lightning arrow with a penetrating effect had already broken through the Johnny Turtle's shell in the 3rd round with water jet, and then in the 4th and 5th rounds, it directly charged the Johnny Turtle out. Johnny. Right now. In an instant. 100,000 volts. Pi. Qiao. Pichu's 100,000 volts hit 1 meter in front of the Johnny Turtle, causing a large pit of over 2 meters to explode. The Johnny Turtle was also thrown upside down by the aftermath of this move. The battle is over. The winner is me. Follow the moment. Pi. Pi Qiao. After cheering and celebrating with Pi Qiao for a while, Xingluo Qiao walked up to the Johnny Turtle and picked it up, saying, Jie Ge, thank you so much for this time. Without you and Xiao Shi practicing together, we couldn't have achieved today's results. Johnny Turtle didn't suffer any injuries at this time, just a mental distress. From the first battle, he was basically being suppressed and beaten. The first month, it became more and more difficult to fight, but in the following month, his own victory and defeat began to slowly change from 28 to 28. At first, it was 8, and now it is 2. Johnny Turtle sighed and patted Pichu's shoulder, saying, Johnny. You are already very strong, you need to protect your little master well. Pi Qiao said seriously, Pi. I will do it. During this period, Pi Qiao not only practiced with Johnny Turtle, but also had children with their parents when they came to visit. If he also had elves, Xingluo Qiao would let Pi Qiao take action. After playing 2 or 3 times, his mood turned pale, and Pi Qiao couldn't even find his opponent. At present, the guy who is the same age as him has basically no command ability. Pokémon only have collision, grabbing, and a special attack skill. He can't even hit Pi Qiao's shadow. After a few seconds, every time someone comes, he pulls Pi Qiao to a farther place for special training. To fight them, it's better to take Pi Qiao to run 2 more laps. Time passed by little, and now, Xingluo Qiao is finally about to start school. Chapter 8. On the Road. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. By the time Xingluo Qiao walked forward with Johnny Turtle and Pichu, a black sedan had already parked at the door. Grandma, is this? Xingluo Qiao looked at the car, and it was just an ordinary black sedan. Grandma Xing had a bag at her feet, and when she saw Xingluo Qiao coming, she smiled and said, This is the acquaintance Grandma told you about. The school you went to is quite far from our house, and they happen to have children at the same school as you. Why don't you go with them? Ah. How do I come back to see my grandmother during my usual holidays? Xingluo Qiao really didn't think of it. Upon hearing Xingluo Qiao's words, Grandma's face burst into laughter and she said, It would be great if you had this kind of heart. Grandma has some things here and can't go anywhere else for now. Don't worry, if you miss Grandma, you can use your phone to make a video call. If you want to go home, you can tell Grandma that she will arrange for you to go home. Upon hearing her grandmother's words, Xingluo Qiao suddenly realized and ran to the 2nd floor. She picked up her phone on the bedside table, wiped it, and almost forgot. After looking around his small room and confirming that he hadn't lost anything, he flipped down the window. A handsome posture landed, and before he could stand up gracefully, his grandmother knocked on his head. Dong! Painful, painful. Oh, Grandma, don't worry, your grandson. I have extraordinary talent, and now the power and superpowers of the Waveguide have reached a stage. There are more than 10 ordinary heroes who are not my opponents. Grandma certainly knows that my good grandson is amazing, but you must be more careful when going out. If you have anything, you can tell Grandma. Grandma will always be your strongest support. Grandma Xing's voice was not loud, but the confidence in her words gave Xingluo Qiao an unparalleled sense of peace. Alright, they also came specifically to pick you up. Don't let them drive for too long, take your bag and get in the car. Xingluo Qiao obediently put on his backpack, greeted Pichu, and let it reach his shoulder. Just as he turned around to get on the car, he still couldn't hold back safely. He turned back and rushed to his grandmother, giving her a big hug. Then, he kissed her on the cheek. Pixiv saw this and also kissed her on the other side of the cheek. When Grandma Xing was stunned, Xingluo Qiao got straight into the car, quickly opened the window, and stretched out half of her body. Grandma. Let's go. You need to pay attention to your health at home. I must be obedient at school. Xingluo Qiao kept waving as she spoke. Grandma Xing looked at her grandson, the corners of her eyes gradually moistened, but in the end, she couldn't say anything. As the child grew up, he always had to go out and explore. It was binding him by her side that harmed him. So Grandma Xing waved her hand, old and young, saying goodbye. At this moment, the man sitting in the passenger seat saw this scene and secretly licked his tongue, implying that the driver could drive. The vehicle started, and in Xingluo Qiao's eyes, the breeding house grew smaller and smaller until it was almost out of sight, and he reluctantly returned to the car. Until then, he only saw a few people in the car. Apart from him, there were 3 more people in the car. The driver was wearing clothes that looked like a uniform, so he should be the driver. The middle-aged man in the co-pilot's seat had a rosy complexion and a dignified demeanor, but his appearance was quite ordinary. At this moment, the guy in the back seat who was looking at him looked about the same size as himself, dressed in a straight white small suit, with golden hair hanging down on his shoulder. If Xingluo Qiao looked like a ranger, then this boy had a noble temperament, but unexpectedly did not have that sense of superiority. Xingluo Qiao's first impression of him was not bad. Hello, my name is Xingluo Qiao. Xingluo Qiao politely extended his hand. He is not someone who likes to be passive, whether it is in battle or in reality. Hello, my name is Richard, Li from Zhao Qiansun. His voice sounded like a warm jade. Richard smiled and shook hands with Xingluo Qiao, then looked at Pixiv and said, Your Pixiv is very strong. If possible, can we have a battle after school starts today? Oh. Expert. Xingluo Qiao saw this guy at a glance and saw Pixi's extraordinary qualities. At the same time, she looked at Pixiu with love in her eyes. At this moment, she even took out some electric elf-specific snacks from her own pocket, and her liking for this guy kept increasing. Although he had a good impression of this guy, he didn't immediately agree. What is your elf? Let it go and give me Kong Kong. My elf is a mini dragon, and that child is much larger than a normal mini dragon. Now it will be a bit crowded when released. Richard looked at Xingluo Qiao, and he could see the strength of Pixiu. Of course, he also knew why Xingluo Qiao said this sentence. He looked at this delicate young man with black pupils and hair, and his nose could smell the smell of sunlight and grass on the other person's body. With a fierce tiger in his heart, sniffing the rose, this is Richard's first impression of Xingluo Qiao. Mini dragon. I haven't seen it yet. It's much larger in size. Is it a domineering elf? In an instant, we're really lucky. Just as we leave home, we'll meet a good opponent. Xingluo Qiao grinned, and at this moment Pixiu was just like Xingluo Qiao, with the same unrestrained and confident smile on his face. At this moment, a magnetic voice spoke with a hint of embarrassment, cough, Chad, aren't you planning to introduce your new friend to your dad? Xingluo Qiao only then looked at the middle-aged man on the passenger seat. He scratched his head and said, I'm sorry, Uncle Li, whenever I encounter something related to elves, I can't stop the car a bit. You probably won't argue with me as a young person. After saying that, Xingluo Qiao blinked pitifully at the middle-aged man. After these words, the middle-aged man laughed heartily, and at the same time, he exclaimed in his heart that he truly was the grandson of that person. He was young and had a good way of moving forward and backward. He immediately called himself Uncle Li to establish a relationship, admitted his mistake, and finally put on a high hat for himself. He was not angry at all, but now he was comforted by a few words from this kid. To put it bluntly, if he were really the kind of person who would argue with children, he wouldn't have any temper at this time. Originally, he only valued Grandma Xing behind Xingluo Qiao, but by now, he had already developed a fondness for this interesting child from the bottom of his heart. No problem, Chad. Last time I asked the butler to put some drinks in the fridge under my seat, could you share it with Xiaoxing? Oh, can I call you that? The middle-aged man also blinked at Xingluo Qiao. Xingluo Qiao naturally knew what the other person meant, and he could trust her if she could make her grandmother feel at ease and hand her over to them. Otherwise, Xingluo Qiao wouldn't be so unguarded. The intentional friendship at this moment was actually just a temporary gesture from him. Okay. In fact, he was quite pleased with that Richard, and also pleased with the uncle in front. Uncle Li, who was completely unaware of his son's glory, was feeling smug at the moment. This is his grandson. I can also shout Xiaoxing myself in the future, when I go out and drink with those bastards. I don't know if anyone will believe me even if I blow it out. Uncle Li has a good grasp of distance. He asked Xingluo Qiao if he would get motion sickness and told him that there are still more than 2 hours to drive. After getting off, he will first go to the restaurant to eat something, and then go to school. Xingluo Qiao didn't have any objections, just suggested that he wanted to have a fight with Richard before going to eat. Uncle Li originally wanted to say that he would eat first, but when he saw his son's shining eyes, he swallowed the words to the point of his mouth. His son has never been mischievous since childhood and is very obedient, so he never refused his son's requests. After speaking, Uncle Li left the space for the 2 people sitting at the back. Richard's understanding of elves surprised Xingluo Qiao greatly and sounded the alarm. His peers were not without demons, but it also made him excited. Soon he will see all kinds of trainers and be cultivated into various elves. So happy. Acha, do you have a picture book? Luo Qiao, I don't have either. Richard's face turned red as he held back. It felt strange when he called someone that way for the first time. You didn't either. I thought our old lady was trying to coax me. It seems that the Alliance's control over the guidebook is really strict. Xingluo Qiao was holding a straw in his mouth, and the car was driving exceptionally smoothly. The air conditioning in the car was also very comfortable to operate. He collapsed in a comfortable seat, drinking a drink, and chatting with Richard. At this moment, Pai Qiu was blowing a cold wind and had already fallen asleep on Xingluo Qiao's leg. Richard sat a little closer to Xingluo Qiao at this moment, carefully touching Pixiv with a satisfied smile on his face. Of course, the guidebook will be bound to the Pokémon ball. Once someone wants to use Pokémon to do evil, the public security system can forcibly retrieve the Pokémon and lock them in as soon as possible. The information on the guidebook itself is also very precious, and we cannot obtain it once we enroll. We must pass the exam for beginner trainers. Chapter 9. Richard, who was brutally beaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While chatting with Richard, Xingluo Qiao quickly fell asleep like Pixiv, and Richard didn't hold on for long. He also quickly fell asleep. The 2 of them were finally awakened by Uncle Li's shaking. When Xingluo Qiao regained consciousness and took a closer look, the outside world had already changed. The wide road, with green plants along it, is filled with skyscrapers everywhere. Various skyscrapers emerge one after another, like a steel forest. The entire city exudes a futuristic sense of technology, with vehicles coming and going on the road. Snacks, fashion stores, and various shops related to elves can be seen everywhere along the road. Xingluo Qiao also saw a red and white building in the distance. He looked at the tall and unusual building and asked, "Is that the Elf Center?" Uncle Li explained with a smile, "Our country has a large population of trainers, and since this is a magic city, the Elf Center is naturally larger. Be good." Xingluo Qiao sighed and then pulled Richard, who was still a bit dazed, to run out. "Uncle Li. What about the battlefield?" Don't worry. Uncle Li smiled and walked with Xingluo Qiao to a nearby building, saying as he walked, this building is Uncle's company, quite close to the elf center, and your school is not far away. The battlefield is right inside. Xingluo Qiao didn't think of anything at the moment. He really wants to see that Overlord mini-dragon. Uncle Li naturally has his plans, and now a group of experienced trainers are observing in the dark. He is also curious about the child's strength, and his own level is ordinary, so he can only hire a professional. Soon, Xingluo Qiao and Richard arrived at the opposite battlefield. This is a battlefield that is twice the size of the standard, with unknown energy flows on the ground to resist damage from elf power on the field. At this moment, Richard was completely awake, standing on the opposite battlefield with a solemn expression. His ability told him that the Pichu in front of him was very strong. Come out. Mini-dragon. Use all your strength to defeat your opponent. Mystery, the entire body is sky blue, and the scales are very shiny. The condition of this mini-dragon is obviously very good, and its size is indeed exaggerated. Even though Richard had mentioned the size of a mini-dragon before, now when Xingluo Qiao looks at it, he is also surprised. It's over 3 meters. Ah cha, how long is your mini-dragon? Looking at Xingluo Qiao's surprised expression, Richard smiled and said, it's 3.4 meters long, but it shouldn't grow any longer. I've been living with it for 3 years now. Don't worry, I treat you as a friend and of course I will do my best to defeat you. In an instant. Pixiv rushed to the opposite battlefield with full fighting spirit. At this moment, he said to a crisp electronic composite female voice on the battlefield, the elves on both sides are in place, the battle begins. This is the referee mode used for battlefield practice, which Li Shu and Xingluo Qiao mentioned before, so he didn't pay any attention at this time. After finishing speaking, Xingluo Qiao immediately began to attack and said, flash of lightning. On the other side, Richard appeared much more composed. Considering the low power of the lightning flash, he directly ordered the mini-dragon to use Dragon Dance. Good opportunity. Pixiv. Although Pixiv was relatively fast on the field, his speed was still within Li Chade's understanding range, and suddenly became extremely outrageous. This. Richard almost didn't stare out, what kind of speed? At this moment, it's not just him, but also the trainers who have reached the senior level and are observing this battle through monitoring equipment are staring wide-eyed. The trainer level settings in this game are beginner, intermediate, advanced, senior, Taoist, Heavenly King, Title Heavenly King, Champion. This speed. How could it have happened to a Pichu? Who brought the guidebook? Look at the level of that Pichu. I'll go out and scan, wait for me. At this moment, Xingluo Qiao didn't know that a bunch of people were almost scared out of their eyes, and Pichu on the field only had his opponent in his eyes. Iron Tail. Break its dragon dance for me. The dragon dance of the mini-dragon has only just started, and Pichu's terrifying speed just now made it jump a lot. Its movements have slowed down a lot, and at this point, it has not even completed half of the movements. After Pichu rushed below the mini-dragon, he suddenly jumped up, twisted his body and swung his tail, and his small black tail fiercely pulled towards the mini-dragon. Mini-dragon. Dragon tail hits. After hearing the words of their trainer, mini-dragon's originally panicked state of mind eased. With flexible body movements and the convergence of dragon energy, it directly interrupted the posture of the dragon dance and used a very extreme posture to pose as the dragon's tail. Xingluo Qiao's face was both surprised and joyful. This mini-dragon has a high level of proficiency in its tail. But not enough. Mystery. The moves of two elves collided, but what surprised people was that the mini-dragon, which was several times larger than Pichu, was defeated. The mini-dragon was pulled back 3 or 4 meters by Pichu's tail, and Pichu flew up a little distance before landing steadily on the ground. Before Richard could react, at the moment Pichu landed. In an instant. Flash of lightning. Speed change. Pi. Richard forcibly stabilized his mind, and the guy in front of him had no time to even breathe when fighting him. Don't be fooled by Pichu's speed. Mini Dragon, wait for Pichu to approach. Lock it. The mini dragon's eyes froze and began to capture Pichu. However, if Pichu's speed change was so easy to capture, Jie wouldn't have been hit so badly. Pi. 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 Pichu saw the gaze of the mini dragon looking at it, and the corner of its mouth showed the same smile as Xingluo Qiao's face. In a very short time, it made 3 speed changes directly. In that moment, in the view of the mini dragon, Pichu seemed as if the entire elf had disappeared. The mini dragon looked around in confusion, but could not find Pichu's figure until Richard's anxious voice sounded. Left rear. Use guardianship. Then dragon dance. The mini dragon did not hesitate to follow the instructions of its trainer. A green light appeared to hold on to the light, and Pai Chio's iron tail knot hit the guard solidly. At this moment, the mini dragon had already begun its dragon dance. Following this trend, after holding on to the radiance, its dragon dance also improves. It has to be said that Richard's command this time was excellent, holding on to only one protected position. If it weren't for the timing of release, Pichu would have been very close to the mini dragon. If it weren't for Pichu hitting the barrier with his iron tail directly, there would have been no chance for the mini dragon's dragon dance to be released, and all of this can be attributed to Richard's sharp combat intuition. As the dragon dance was about to be completed, Richard's suspended heart eased slightly. After the dragon dance was strengthened, at least he wouldn't be at a disadvantage when colliding with frontal moves. Relaxing too early, the voice of Xingluo Qiao rang out. Richard's eyes instantly widened, and he saw Pichu's expression. There was no panic, no irritability, but a wild smile like that young man. In an instant. 5 lightning arrows. Blow that I. Catching light curtain away from me. Pi. Behind Pai Chio, 5 arrows transformed from golden lightning instantly condensed, and then each one collided with a point on the light curtain. Defending the green light curtain is when 5 lightning arrows collide, with a spider web-like pattern accompanied by a crisp click sound. In the next moment, the electrical energy suddenly surged from Pichu's body, and at some point, Xingluo Qiao's right hand, which was raised high, suddenly fell down together. 100,000 volts. Pai Chio. Use the wave of the dragon to resist. Just looking with his eyes, Richard knew that with this 100,000 volt split, his mini dragon would definitely lose its combat ability. So he had to give up using Dragon Dance again and instead use Dragon Wave to resist 100,000 volts. The power of both skills is the same, but that Pichu is clearly abnormal. From Richard's perspective, Pichu's small body was briefly suspended in the sky, releasing 100,000 volts like a raging dragon descending from the sky. Just looking at the volume of 100,000 volts, it's twice as big as a mini dragon. At the level of 100,000 volts like a raging dragon, my mini dragon's fluctuation only lasted for a short moment before being instantly defeated. After the mini dragon let out a scream, it fell directly to the ground, and its eyes turned into mosquito coils spinning in circles. Mini dragon loses combat ability. Pichu wins. In an instant. Well done. Xingluo Qiao immediately ran down to celebrate with Pichu. Pichu, like a fairy with nothing to do, jumped onto Xingluo Qiao's shoulder and affectionately rubbed her face. Subsequently, Xingluo Qiao took out a bottle of good wound medicine from his pants pocket and carefully sprayed it on all the wounds on the mini-dragon's body. While spraying it, he smiled and said to Richard, "You don't blame me for being too aggressive, do you?" "I tried my best." Richard also walked over and shook his head. To be honest, this was his first time losing to his peers, and it was still such a devastating defeat. The bitter consequences of failure were not easy to taste, but he quickly recovered and stared at Xingluo Qiao with his eyes. "If you didn't give it your all, I would be angry." I really liked the battle just now. Your Pixiv is really strong. It's like a monster. Richard walked over to Xingluo Qiao with some anger, and retaliated by gently rubbing Pixi's cheek. Pixiu let out two embarrassed cries, not avoiding Richard's ravages. The mini dragon has fully recovered under the good healing medicine of Xingluo Qiao to Heo, and at this time, its mood is somewhat low. Don't just praise my Pixiu. Your mini dragon has been trained very well, and the proficiency of the dragon tail is very high. You can use that extreme distance and execute your commands very well in battles, almost like me and in an instant. Your command is also very impressive to me. Also, if your dragon dance proficiency is even higher, the attack and defense you defended will be completely different. With the blessing of dragon dance, the dragon wave of the mini dragon is likely to reverse the 100,000 volts that Pixiu commanded. The reason why you were so quickly defeated just now is mainly because you encountered an opponent like us for the first time. Before the dragon wave could fully form, it was forced to confront us with a roar. Richard listened to Xingluo Qiao's chatter and watched him touch the mini dragon. With his skillful technique, the mini dragon quickly screamed comfortably, even directly entangled with Xingluo Qiao's body. Richard is very clear that this is a way for his own mini dragon to express his love for someone. Thank you very much for your guidance, Pixiu. In our next battle, the release speed of Dragon Dance will definitely be faster than you can interrupt. Moreover, we will also become stronger and stronger. We will fight again when the time comes. Richard extended his fist, and Xingluo Qiao earnestly punched him. Then the two children laughed happily together. Chapter 10. Opening Ceremony of Magic City No. 1 Middle School. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. How about it? What level is that Pixiu? After all these years of training, I've become a dog. Damn it, that Pixiu is only at level 10. I believe it even when you say it's over 20. Also, have you seen that child's command? And the cooperation between Pixiu and that child. Oh my goodness, he hasn't even entered junior high school yet. I'll beat up my son when I go back. Same fight, my son is the same. Every day he feels like he's not good enough. He's on the second day of junior high school this year, and this child's Pixiu is afraid that he can team up my foolish son now. Lao Li, my daughter is the same age as this child and is also studying at Magic City No. 1 High School this year. Look. Uncle Li watched this game mostly because it was lively. Although he had elves, he knew nothing about battles. Elves were also sent to the cultivation house for cultivation. At this moment, he felt that his son was losing so quickly. The comments from the experienced trainers on the side gave him a more intuitive understanding of the terrifying potential of Xingluo Qiao. He waved his hand and said, "Go ahead. How old is this child? Let me tell you, I only sent you here to see our good relationship. If there is a chance to get along with him in the future, it is your fate. Don't rely on him, even my old man wouldn't dare to provoke his support." As soon as these words were spoken, the trainers suddenly fell silent. It's no wonder Mr. Li didn't dare to provoke the family food. Hiss. No wonder. This kid is so demonic, there is indeed a reason for it. Alright, I'm ready to go out. These two kids haven't eaten yet, and there will be a school opening ceremony in the afternoon. What are you going to do? Hello Li Mao, are you polite? Crossing the river and demolishing the bridge, unloading the grinding stones and killing the donkey, right? One of the middle-aged men gave Uncle Li a bad look. Li Mao is his name. Okay, next time I'll be hosting, Mingyue Xian. Li Mao was also in a good mood now, and with a wave of his hand, he made a promise. Now everyone has no objections, just kidding. Every meal Mingyue Xian eats will cost tens of thousands. Xingluo Qiao and Richard sat on the opposite side of the battlefield, chatting and exchanging their experiences in battle. Xingluo Qiao was like a sponge, and although his past gaming experience had brought him unparalleled advantages, how could he underestimate the wisdom that people in this world have constantly researched? It's like holding on to the dragon dance just now. With the right timing, Xingluo Qiao dared to say that if Dragon Dance were released, the outcome of that match wouldn't necessarily be an instant win. Even if we win, it would only be a disastrous victory. Your moment is already very strong. If you could learn another move to enhance yourself, I think it would be even more powerful. Richard's eyes lit up, and during their conversation just now, he also realized that if Pichu had a similar enhanced move, the previous battle would have become overwhelming. My own mini-dragon will have no chance at all. Xingluo Qiao shook his head and said, it's not that simple. Our current mastery of moves is not perfect enough. There is still room for exploration in Iron Tail and Electric Shock, not to mention 100,000 volts. Moreover, the difficulty of mastering enhanced moves has always been the highest among all move categories. Your mini-dragon should have learned it through genetics. Richard nodded and said, the genetic skills of a mini-dragon include Dragon Tail, Dragon Wave, Dragon Dance, and a Water Flow Tail. However, the mastery level was too low, so it didn't work just now. You're right, our mastery level of moves is still not enough. Mini-dragons, we need to practice well in the future. Both of them had their own gains. During their communication with Richard, Xingluo Qiao determined the next skill category for Pichu to learn and enhance his own type of skills. Richard, on the other hand, decided to polish his elf skills well. You too. Let's go. Let's go eat. Li Mao stood at the entrance of the battlefield and shouted to the two of them. Xingluo Qiao stood up, while Pichu skillfully jumped onto Xingluo Qiao's shoulder. Richard looked at Xingluo Qiao with envy. If possible, he didn't actually want to put the mini-dragon away, but considering it was going out to eat, unlike Pichu, the mini-dragon was too eye-catching outside. After all, it was a quasi-god level elf. This time, Li Mao did not take the driver with him, but drove with Xingluo Qiao and Richard to the door of a hotel. The carved beams and painted rafters of the hotel seemed out of place with the surrounding modern buildings. The waitresses in the hotel were all dressed in appropriate cheongsam, while the male waiters were dressed in tang suits. Before walking in, he took a look at the sign. Mingyue Pavilion. Li Mao skillfully pulled out a card, and then the three of them went up to the private room on the third floor together. After Li Mao ordered 2 signs himself, he handed the menu to Xingluo Qiao and said, the signs here are braised sea cucumber with scallion and smoked duck with wu wei. Uncle told you, these 2 dishes must be tasted. Look what else you like to eat, don't worry. Xingluo Qiao didn't hesitate either. He glanced at the menu and said, wow, this price is a bit outrageous. A simple boiled cabbage costs 38 yuan. Xingluo Qiao felt that robbing the bank was not as profitable as this boss's. Moreover, looking at the business of this shop, it was not an exaggeration to say it was booming. He ordered sweet and sour pork ribs and then gave the menu to Richard, saying, your dad treats you. Don't be polite to him. This made Li Mao burst out laughing, and Richard also smiled. He then ordered garlic lettuce and added the only vegetable to this lunch. The Xingluo Qiao's cheeks are about to fall off during this meal, and Xingluo Qiao's eating posture is just 2 words, bold and unrestrained. Eating big mouthfuls, Richard watched him eat, unconsciously eating an extra bowl than usual. After having a good meal, Li Mao specially ordered 2 tropical dragon banana ice creams for Christmas to pack for the 2 little ones, and finally sent them to school. Xingluo Qiao rolled over and got off the car, stretched lazily and touched his slightly stretched belly, sighing, money is his mother's good. When I succeed in the future, invite my grandmother to Mingyue Pavilion every day to eat delicious food. Pai Qiu was also enjoying his meal at this moment. He had just enjoyed a magical version of food with the mini-dragon at the Mingyue Pavilion, with each puff and a special combination of elf food and energy blocks, completely grasping the inexperienced Pai Qiu. Now Pai Chio's small face was still full of a happy expression. Finally, it's here. Richard sighed. He never expected that he would suffer such a big defeat before the start of school. He just didn't know if there would be opponents like Xingluo Qiao in the Magic City No. 1 middle school. Yeah. I can't wait to fight those amazing classmates. Xingluo Qiao clenched her fist excitedly. At this moment, Li Mao's somewhat amused voice came, "You two, don't be too happy too early. Most of the students are actually only starting to cultivate their first elf now, and you both belong to special people." Xingluo Qiao was taken aback, yes. But he immediately regained his smile and said, "It's okay. I don't have to bully anyone in an instant. From scratch, my Johnny Turtle will also be the strongest. I can't ignore that. My second elf is Yaya. We will defeat you and your Johnny Turtle." Richard looked at Xingluo Qiao with fighting spirit, and Xingluo Qiao smiled confidently. "Defeat me. You can only dream of it in your dreams. But do you want to go solo? Dragon series, powerful and handsome. That's right, my goal is to become the Dragon King. No, I will definitely become the Dragon King." Richard's emotions were a bit excited. Xingluo Qiao keenly noticed something was wrong, but before he could speak, Li Mao said, "All right, you two little guys. If you don't go in again, you'll really be late." So Xingluo Qiao waved goodbye to Richard and Li Mao. There are two types of students at Magic City No. 1 Middle School. Day students and boarding students. Xingluo Qiao naturally lives on campus, while Richard is naturally a day student. After all, he is very close to his home. Li Mao actually wanted Xingluo Qiao to stay at his house, but first, he didn't dare to talk to Grandma Xing, and second, Xingluo Qiao himself had some interest in living on campus, so he also gave up this plan. The two of them, one in front and one behind, walked into the Magic City No. 1 Middle School. Magic City No. 1 High School is a century-old school, covering an area of over 5,000 acres. It can be said to be very big. This includes middle school and high school departments, as well as elf trainer classes and regular cultural classes. The courses for both are separate, and not everyone in this world hopes to become a trainer. With an elf, going to school and finding a job safely is the way for most people. After Xingluo Qiao walked into the imposing white marble gate, he looked over and saw that the wide road was not only filled with classmates and teachers, but also various kinds of elves. He even saw a cabby beast. Xingluo Qiao used great willpower to restrain his impulse to pounce on the belly of the cabby beast. Richard looked at Xingluo Qiao's flushed eyes and twitched his lips. He now knew Xingluo Qiao quite well. This guy, seeing the elves, couldn't walk. So he had to forcefully pull him all the way forward, walking for about 10 minutes, and finally saw the playground. At this time, there were already many people on the playground, boys and girls, holding a container containing nutrient solution and elf eggs in their arms. After Xingluo Qiao and Richard walked near the playground, a handsome teacher with eyes walked up to them and said, "It's Xingluo Qiao and Richard, right? Come with me, first go collect the fairy eggs stored by your parents, and then take them to the playground to wait." Richard nodded and shouted hello to the teacher, then obediently followed behind the glasses teacher's buttocks, while Xingluo Qiao curiously said, "Teacher, how do you know who the two of us are? Do you know all the classmates?" The glasses teacher smiled and took off his glasses, saying, "This pair of glasses has scanning function. There is a microcomputer installed on it, and I can distinguish all my classmates with it. My surname is An, you can call me Teacher An. So it's like this, thank you, Teacher An." Xingluo Qiao licked her tongue. The technology in this world looks quite impressive. The two of them received the elf eggs and walked to a sparsely populated area. They sat down directly on the lawn of the playground, feeling the softness of the grass and the gentle breeze blowing. Xingluo Qiao felt a little drowsy and said to Richard, "Oldly, you'll start calling me later, I'll take a nap." After that, he fell asleep and didn't give Richard a chance to refuse. Pichu saw his own trainer sleeping, he also leaned against Xingluo Qiao's head and yawned, closing his eyes. Richard. Didn't he call me Ah Cha? Why did Lao Li shout out again?